Hi everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Happy Monday to you and your family. We're going to take a look here, of course, at Bitcoin, help you understand best practice and big picture. And just so you know, this is probably going to be my only video today, not feeling 100%. Of course, I'm disabled, but that's besides the point with the busted right hand. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to look at traditional markets as well as dollar index, kind of get perspective on what's going on and why we're seeing a bit of a red day here today, and obviously address support and resistance levels too and kind of see what that looks like as well. So if you are new to the channel, just know I'm not a financial advisor. Truly do love teaching people to trade. Hope you can learn something here today. And we're going to go ahead and obviously look at some best practice things to help you do this more self-sufficiently, right? And now I do have a trading community, academy, and signal group. So if you want to kind of benefit from that, feel free to reference that yourself. CryptoCash.tech is a website, link in the description below. Got a lot of new members coming over, so thank you so much for giving it a shot. I can assure you, you're going to learn a lot and obviously do much better in the overall sense of things. Most of my graduates are doing very well right now, and a lot of them are using Bitget as well. So highly recommend using this also because the simple fact that it is a phenomenal exchange, extremely great level 2 data. We've got futures available in the United States without a VPN. And if you register with this link in the description below, of course, before November 30th, you can, of course, benefit from some bonus funds that they go ahead and provide to you if you transfer and use the exchange. So you transfer funds over, use the exchange, all well and good. You're going to find significant benefit. I do recommend, of course, using demo trading initially before you start trading with futures, because a lot of my folks, like a lot of newer members are curious how to use it, and it's always recommended to kind of quote unquote paper trade first, so you know what to do when and to learn from your mistakes before you financially learn from your mistakes, if that makes any sense. Anyways, conversation for another day. All stuff I teach in my trading academy. I hope you can find benefit there. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to look at some standard stuff before we go to the other standard stuff. And what I mean by that is just the fundamental foundational stuff here, such as dollar index having another great day. Okay, so the dollar index goes up, traditional markets go down. You can kind of think of it that the value of the dollar is going up, therefore the value of Bitcoin goes down because of course it costs more to buy it, right? That's kind of the general concept, the easiest way to understand it. But generally speaking here, if we see we've got four green days for the dollar index, of course, and Bitcoin minus yesterday, of course, not being tracked on traditional dollar index, is essentially 4 red days. Okay, so generally speaking, that's no surprise there. Until the dollar index comes down, we're going to be in this kind of situation. Same thing as well for traditional markets. They, for the most part, follow the dollar index because we can see 3 of the last 4 days are red. Okay, so generally speaking, that's kind of where we're at there. What I can do here in the future is kind of address the traditional markets and kind of maybe make a separate video on support and resistance levels for them. You can see a pretty obvious one right now forming, whereas the price is trying to test that support level, previous resistance. So if that does break to the downside, we should expect price for Bitcoin to decrease as well. But again, just something to kind of understand. Bitcoin dominance is effectively drawing dead, which is all well and good. It really just implies that there's not a lot of market capitalization coming away from Bitcoin. It's going, I guess you could say evenly across other altcoins. Okay, again, just something to kind of think about. So generally speaking here, nothing definitive and like ultra crazy. I mean, traditional markets are down, by the way, roughly 1%, a little over 1%. That is a significant drop in the overall sense of things. That's more like a 2 to 3% correction for Bitcoin, because it does tend to be about 2 to 3x of traditional markets. So you got to recognize that those things are all happening in the back end, which does affect Bitcoin significantly. Okay, so let's take a look at what else affects Bitcoin. Well, being under 50 on the RSI is never a positive sign. We were above that for a short while, but unfortunately all those gains are pretty much minimized now. So for lack of better terms, we're quote unquote bearish in that sense. We also have a bearish divergence here as well in the MACD, where the price might continue lower based on this momentum to the downside. Now, it's not to say it's going to continue. We see bounces all the time, but this is definitely something to pay attention to. Okay, so we got that, and then we also want to kind of address on the daily, the moving averages, and kind of see where we're at. This hasn't changed much. We should still be under 50, but that is absolutely something we want to pay attention to. So being under 50 on the RSI is one thing, but being under 50 on the moving average is another. So we don't really have much support. There's more resistance at the $20,000 range at this level than previously before. So I would say 20,000 is a point of contention here at this point, and we got to be kind of mindful of taking a long position at this time. I think leave the long position we have open. It's perfectly fine. We will hit our target eventually, but it's not going to be immediately or shouldn't be today. We do have, October 12th is PPI data, and then October 13th is the CPI data. So this will be an interesting week for volatility. We're going to see some ugly candle wicks and candlesticks like we've seen previously when there is a type of quote-unquote news or fundamental catalyst, right? So be mindful of that. That should very well spike upwards in most cases. A lot of times leading into those events, you get green days, and then it's followed by potentially a red day. It's hard to honestly say. It really just depends on how the regular markets affect or are affected, of course, by this news. So that's kind of where we're at there on the daily. I would say more negative than positive in the overall sense of things. We'll see if that's going to continue on the shorter time frames. So looking at the 4 hour here, of course, let's quickly address RSI being close to 30. This is positive in a sense because we're close to 30 on the RSI. In most cases on the 4 hour, you see a bounce. There's rare occasions where the price will come well below 30 on the RSI, but it's a common bouncing point. So if I were to just, if I was a gambling man and I was only using the 4 hour time frame, I would anticipate the price bouncing off of this support level right here at about 19,200. Okay, again, I'm not the gambling type, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that, but I can tell you that if you were to use just one indication here, RSI at 30 is a pretty good inkling to that we're expecting the price to recover. It's not going to bounce significantly. And what I mean by that, though, is it can bounce, don't get me wrong, but it's probably not going to be able to exceed the most recent high. So I would venture to guess if it were to bounce, 19,500 would be the a better case scenario for it. Okay, so it doesn't look fantastic by any stretch. Also got the MACD still diverging, and you can see it's gaining momentum here. So in turn, we should expect the price to continue further. Okay, so I think more downside is likely. I'm speculating if it were to continue to lose this support level here, which seems like it's happening already, we could very well see 18,800 retest. That was a key level support in the past. You can see the price actions had a lot of difficulty getting past that point. So we could very well see a retest that level. I think that seems fairly realistic to anticipate that. I wouldn't just buy the dip because it looks attractive. And don't ever do that. It's not. It rarely works. You'll get lucky sometimes, but it's not really the appropriate way to trade. We can also see that this descending trend here, which of course the 20-day set moving average it has a tendency of working concurrent with, you can see that definitive correlation here. You can see how it's just kind of writing itself down. So the 20-day set moving average is nice because it does help you understand immediate uptrends or downtrends. And at this point, the downtrend is continuing because we have broken this higher low pattern that we had recently. So yesterday we were kind of right at this level here, and now we're below. So we got to expect the price to continue lower and not really expect a lot of support at this point. I would say 18,800 is a good support level. We do want to kind of expect that to be either retested or try it again. But if we don't go that low, all well and good. Not saying it's the sky is falling, but we should expect further downside with what we see here. It just makes sense. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at there. Let's go and just look at the hourly and see, because so far we've determined that the 4 hour. Let me get rid of these guys here. The 4 hour and the daily are not looking fantastic, but a lot of times you can look at the 1 hour and identify a potential turnaround. So let's see if there is anything of that sort. First thing we look at is TD sequential to see if we are overexhausted to the downside, and we've had some decent amount of consolidation. So in truth, we could see another 5 more hours of downtrend, which would make sense. That's roughly how much longer the traditional markets are going to be open. So my speculation is we continue to get hit kind of hard like we are right now, and then the price continues lower, and then we potentially see a slight recovery near the end of the trading day today. Again, there's so many different situations that can occur with a lot of these crazy, fundamental catalysts, either upcoming and or just the market being terrible in general. We should expect it to go lower. That's probably the best way to go right now, okay? Because every indication that we see here so far is really just telling us further downside is expected. Let's see if Ichimoku Cloud is telling us anything here as well. It's really just reiterating the fact that we are probably going to continue to see further downside. So you can see that the lower lead here on the cloud working fairly concurrent with this new trend line here. And a lot of times that works as a continued resistance level. So until we find a base and we continue to hit, just say we reestablish maybe a double bottom or continue to trend sideways, it's likely going to continue here to the downside. And if you see the lagging spans free and clear of price action, the only thing that is, well, actually no, that's not a good thing either, because the conversion line is below the baseline, of course, telling us we have that momentum to the downside, and we're obviously down below the cloud. So I'm not saying you want to open a short position per se, but that's absolutely telling us that a short position is viable, right? So again, to me, it's a little overextended to the downside. I would prefer not to take a short position at this point, but it does seem probable that the price wants to continue further. Again, just looking at a little technical data here so far, we see like an 8 out of 10 likelihood of further downside. Now, how much further that downside is going to be is really up to previous support and resistance levels. So if we kind of take a look here, just say we lose 19,200, 18,800 is the more likely candidate. That's the one that we're probably going to see get tested. And if we break below that, it's a different story altogether, because we've only been underneath 18,800 for a short amount of time. Majority of the candle wicks down, like we've only had literally a 24-hour period where the price action closed below that level. So I'm anticipating if the price were to continue lower, which does seem likely, 18,800 would probably be a good bouncing point. Okay, again, we're above the Fibonacci circle level. We're above some key level supports. We're not in dire straits by any stretch. This is pretty much par for the course. But on the same accord, you got to kind of prepare and expect the worst, I would say. When my grandpa used to say, expect the worst and hope for the best. I think that's what we probably want to do here, because I know hope doesn't belong in trading. That's exactly why you expect the worst first, right? So make sure you anticipate that. And I would just say that, 19,000/18,800 is more likely a realistic bouncing point at this time. So we'll see what happens, of course. Hopefully that made sense to you and I was able to describe that correctly. And if you want to become a better trader again, you got to keep in mind that we are doing fairly well as a community, right? We're taking massive profits here recently, thankfully from XRP, that basically saved us a lot here recently. And then of course we got a long position open for Bitcoin. But I mean, if you look at just some of these trade results, like my traders are doing phenomenal things. And you got to celebrate the wins when you get them, right? So good job there, King. I really appreciate you posting that. And of course, we got a massive amount of benefit here from Narnia Farmer. Compels, of course, another short 40x there for Bitcoin. So I mean, the list goes on as far as what people are able to do at this point, and I'm just super proud of my community. So you guys want to be part of that, that camaraderie. It's really awesome to be able to just, I guess, be surrounded by other traders that have similar goals and great ideas. Thanks again for that. Hey, I appreciate y'all. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.